Hey guys, welcome back to UModeler. In this video, we're going to take a look at a new tool option that was added within the paint mode, and it's going to be actually added to the paint layer, and it's called the gradient tool. And so the gradient tool is going to allow you to add a gradient paint layer over the faces that you have selected. And so I'm going to show you how we can actually approach that with this particular object. All right, so my goal here is to actually make it go from like a dark to a light, from the bottom to the top on the body of this game object. And to take a quick look at the actual UVs, I have the body here, and then I also unwrapped the screens, and I have the lights here that are supposed to like illuminate on the actual console. Now we're not going to get into like emissions or anything like that. This is really just to kind of show how the gradient tool works, but this is just generally how you could approach unwrapping your game object. All right, and to actually get your game object unwrapped like this, I just use the plane unwrap plane, and I just did a projection on the view, and then I clicked unwrapped based on the view, just like that. All right, so what I'm going to do here now is, with my game object selected, I'm going to head over to the painting mode here, and then once you click on that, all you have to do is set your settings here. I'm just going to leave everything as default, and then I'm going to head over to start painting. Once you click start painting, this is all going to be pretty normal here. You're going to have your paint layers. Of course, you can add additional layers as needed, but we're going to go ahead and scroll down a little bit with our paint layer selected. And inside the properties area, you're going to see the brush, the erase, the rect, and then you're going to see the gradient. So if you click this, this is going to give you the ability to now apply a gradient fill across the actual paint layer. All right, and if you go ahead and click on gradient, it's going to open up a gradient editor, and within this editor you have a few different options. You can change the mode. We'll just leave it to classic, but you can change these options here. And then below here you're going to have the actual ability to set your gradient colors, and you can move things around. And so what I can do also is add in additional colors. So if I, for instance, click these within this area, that gives you the ability to click, and then if you double click on one of those little tabs there, you can then go ahead and change these here. And so now you're actually creating a different gradient to your liking, which is always a great thing. And then if you actually want to keep that particular gradient for later use, you see where it says new, we can simply click that, and when you click it, now you can use it as often as you need to. Great. So our goal now is to go ahead and apply a gradient to that. Now, also, if you don't like what you have here, you can actually click and drag down on any one of these tabs, and that's going to give you the ability to remove those colors as needed. All right. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is close this gradient. And what we're going to do now is go ahead and take a look at our paint layer. So looking at our paint layer, we're going to assume that we want to apply it to this particular paint layer. Of course, you know, if you want to change the name, you can change the name. We can change it to like body or console, whatever you prefer. Now, in order to actually use the gradient, what we're going to have to do is go over to where it says Editor, and we're going to open the next window down. It's going to say Painting 2D. Now, this is actually where we want to apply the actual gradient. All right, now in order to see what we're applying the gradient to, a good way to go about this is going back over to your layers in the painting mode and clicking on fill layer. And we can actually move that fill layer to the bottom stack of this. And so now we can kind of see underneath, okay, because our wireframe is going to be white, we can go ahead and actually see that. Now we can actually turn off wireframe, different things like that. But if you want to be able to see it, you can add that fill layer to the bottom. All right, great. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and go inside here. And now, because right now in this version of the gradient tool, we have to use the Painting 2D window to apply it. So there's different ways that you can go about this. So what I'm going to do is select this particular layer, the body console layer that I created. And because we have in the properties the gradient tool selected, what I'm going to do is click and drag within this space here. So as I click and drag, you'll see that gradient being applied to the whole layer itself. And as you can see, wherever you click, it's going to create that distance, and as you kind of spread that out, you're going to get a more gradient feel. So what I'm going to do is click and let go, and once you click and let go, you want to let Unity do its processing of the gradient itself, and just want to give it a few seconds for it to get working there, and then once it's done, you'll have your gradient all set and added. Okay, and so now that our gradient has been added, I'm going to go ahead and move this over to the side. And as you can see, the gradient has been added, but as you can see, based on where our body is, it's only touching kind of like the bottom portions of where this is, but you can see the screens and different things like that are all hit within that space. So really what I want to do is make sure this area here is touched. So if I click further up, and I do something like this, then we actually get to see it. And as you can see, you can actually see it on the screen live while you're doing it. So that's a nice ability there. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and do something like this, and I'll let go. And we're just going to go ahead and give it some time to process again. And then once it's done processing, you'll be able to see that gradient applied to your game objects. So that's actually pretty nice. All right. But if you don't want the gradient to be applied to the other faces that you've unwrapped and they're not really designed for getting hit with the gradient because you don't want it applied to it, that's the beauty of using layers. So what we're going to do here is we can go over here, we can create a new layer. And on this layer here, we can just call it like screens, just to kind of break it down that way. And then you can do another one called lights if you want. So we can do like lights, just like so. So on screens, what we can do now is just go to screens. We can change to the paint tool, and we can actually go in and change our color just for demonstration. And we can actually paint directly on the screens. Now, of course, you can paint here and that's going to work just fine. But because we're actually painting, you can paint in the 3D scene. That's the great part about this, is that you can actually paint here as well. Now, because screens are not going to be orange, what we can do also is simply change this to black, and you can actually go to the rect tool and actually select those there. Because the rect tool is ultimately you doing a rect fill or filling up a polygon space. So that's a nice way to go about it, and so you can do it that way. Now, if we want, we can now change our paint tool to blue if we want, and now we can draw on top of that. Of course, we want to switch back to the brush tool, and of course, I'm going to do it within this space here, and so that's great. We can also change the size of our brush as needed, and so now we can do all types of things here. Great. And so now we can do 1, 2, 3, we can draw lines, we can do whatever we want here, and that's great. And so this will be, say, our screens, and we can do some important information here, that sort of thing. All right. And so that's pretty much it. It's not a texturing tutorial. It's just the ability to kind of show you how you can approach using the gradient tool. Another option you can also use is by actually going to the gradient tool and actually applying a mask. So that's another way to go about it. You can use it that way as well. So there's just different ways you can approach it and use it. It's just, that's the beauty of using the painting mode within UModeler. There's not one way to approach things. There's many ways you can kind of go about it. But yeah, other than that, I hope you guys use this tool, and I would love to see how you guys utilize it. All right, other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to stay up to date with the latest features and updates by hitting the subscribe button and clicking that notification bell. More new tools and content are on the way, and you wouldn't want to miss out. I'll see you soon.